We often think of wars as being between massive fleets and grand armies. Hell, for centuries, war has been exclusively a thing humans wage on other species, not each other. This place, it was different. It really was a war where everyone was on their own side. Human on human, wholesale slaughter. It's weird seeing this place so empty now. I remember alternating from running protection rackets to selling Widow when this place was at its peak. Part of me wishes we could go back, be there forever. The excitement was addicting, really. Now I just hope someday we can recapture what we had here in Jumptown. Paul Shelley, Jumptown Wars veteran, February 2950.
The Jumptown Wars were fought in a dozen places. From the cold surface of Yella to its orbital ring. From Grim Hex to Cry-Astra refueling. More than 10,000 humans fought in it, and thousands of them died in it. Transport ships became drug runners, and fighters became enforcers. Huge fleets of human ships blotted out the skies, leaving human wreckage in their wake. Humans slaughtered one another wholesale here in human space, beside places with old human names. More people died than any previous conflict in Stanton. Whole fleets were reduced to ash in mere minutes. Men and women who had never committed a parking violation now found themselves drug smugglers in great convoys, fighting epic battles over a moon most of them had only heard about before. They were making history, and for many, it was one of the greatest adventures of their lives. The war would make some rich, ruin others, and change the lives of all who lived through it.
I find that living in the heavens suits me.
Kelly Kaplan, CEO, Crusader Industries.
Like the many wars before it, the origins of the Jumptown Wars stretch back far beyond the first shots fired. First discovered in 2851, the Stanton System was always a special case. It was the only system to have multiple super-Earth-sized planets, and each and every one of them within the habitable zone. Stanton had two bidirectional large jump points connecting to Terra and Magnus. This meant Stanton was a new hub for faster trade between the major economic centers of Sol and Terra. The only issue was, when the system was first discovered by the UEE, they weren't the first humans there. Smugglers, settlers, and prospectors had already started to settle when the first UEE military forces arrived. Unfortunately for the first settlers, the system was too much of a prize for the military to allow them to remain. Declaring eminent domain on the system, the Navy brought in the most powerful ship in the fleet, a Bengal-class supercarrier, to enforce their will. Over the following years, the UEE Navy would systematically hunt down and remove every one of the squatters. Facing the might of the military, these settlers never stood a chance. By the late 29th century, the system was firmly in the hands of the UEE, who began terraforming the planets for human habitation. The Navy even built a lattice of platforms to float in the upper atmosphere of the partially terraformed gas giant Stanton II, to act as a shipyard and base. With the system firmly in their control, the government now found themselves in a quandary. What to do with it? The empire was still in an economic slump, caused in the aftermath of the Messer dynasty. It was also in the middle of a century-long drought of colonial ambitions. There wasn't much hope to entice enough new settlers to colonize these verdant worlds, and keeping an active military presence to keep control of the system was getting expensive. Yet, they couldn't give up the economic and strategic system. What they needed was a way out, one that would come from an unorthodox place.
I am sick of people questioning our right to operate in this world. What is a corporation but the extension of the people? A government is elected through votes, while we have been elected by your credits.
Colonel Gavin E. Hurston.
With the fall of the Messers, many older companies tied to them fell as well. This left a vacuum which a few companies managed to fill. One of these was the long-standing megacorp conglomerate ArcCorp. Its latest claim to fame was its line of fusion engines, built by a struggling engine manufacturer, Novalite, who they acquired in 2811. Their engines had quickly become the standard, which all others are judged by. The issue they were encountering was the requirements to make their engines. There was so much demand that they couldn't keep up with the orders, and there just wasn't enough space for them to operate their factories efficiently. When word came that the UEE was struggling with Stanton, ArcCorp approached them with an offer. The company wanted to buy a continent on one of the worlds to serve as one massive factory. This demand was unheard of before, and many in the Senate were wary of giving one company so much land. Others, however, saw this as an opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. Given the unique nature of the request and the unique nature of the system, some senators proposed a more ambitious plan. They wanted to sell an entire planet of the Stanton System to ArcCorp. ArcCorp agreed, and after vigorous debate in the Senate, a vote was passed allowing the sale of all the planets in the system. The government had some caveats to these sales. The system would never get representation in the Senate, fearing that any representative from the system would speak to the interests of the corporations and not the people. All UEE common laws were to be enforced and followed by the corporations on the planets and orbital bodies of the planets. Local jurisdictions fell to the companies themselves to enforce as they pleased. ArcCorp agreed to the terms and asked for the third planet in the system. The Senate quietly sent out offers to bid on the remaining planets. Hurston Dynamics had interest in the first planet, as it was the hottest and most desolate of the four. They were in need of more space to not only build but test their weapons. Microtech showed interest in the fourth planet in the system. An accident during terraforming had caused the planet to be habitable but much colder than was expected. They saw the natural cold as a benefit for their supercomputers, requiring less energy to keep them at optimal temperature. Crusader Industries, the newest of the corporations approached, also had an interest in buying the gas giant of Stanton II. Originally, Crusader was offered a buy one get one free option due to the lack of land on and around the planet, but turned it down. Their goal was to convert the old base into a headquarters and shipyard to build their large transports more efficiently. The planets were given the names of their companies as their official titles, with Stanton II becoming known as Crusader. Crusader Industries CEO, Kelly Kaplan, named the moons after the main characters of a popular 24th century morality tale called A Gift for Baba. The story followed three siblings as they made their way from Mars to Jupiter's moon Europa. They were traveling to give the perfect gift to their grandmother Baba. The moon that was covered in over 100 volcanoes was named after Selin, who was the most angry of the children. The dusty red moon, with an almost perfect orbit around the gas giant, was named Daymar, after the child who was most easily lost in the story. The cold moon, covered in a water ice crust, was named Yella, after the oldest of the siblings who was said to be cool and calculating. Little did anyone know that the cool world would soon become home to the cold and calculating realities of war. During the early years of the UEE's control over Stanton, many prospectors made their way into the system with the government's blessing. The ring around Stanton II's icy moon was especially valuable. So much so that Green Imperial built a housing exchange, or HEX station, inside one of the larger asteroids. This was meant to be a temporary structure, offering a bed and some basic services to those lone prospectors around Yella. As the system developed with its new owners, it quickly became a mecca for industry from all over the Empire. Scientists, entrepreneurs, mercenaries, traders, and haulers all flocked to the system to take advantage of the burgeoning trade. New outposts were built all over the system, including the moons of Crusader. They range from mining operations to research labs and even family farms. This economic boom attracted other unsavory types to seek their fortune as well. Pirates, outlaws, smugglers, and other criminals snuck their way into the system, raiding and picking off vulnerable transports, leeching off the success of these new lands and the lack of formal protection from the UEE. Because of the dangers and the stiff competition from larger groups, many of the entrepreneurs and independent outposts and stations of the Stanton System were abandoned, left to the elements. Green Imperial's Hex Station was no exception. As the valuable materials of Yella's ring were mined out, fewer and fewer people called the station home. Finally, Green Imperial would officially close the station in 2938. The former mining hab would not remain closed for long. New gangs like the Nine Tails, Nova Riders, and countless other syndicates and outlaws took up residence and used the abandoned station as a lucrative base of operations. Many of the abandoned outposts also found themselves repurposed to be dead drops for smugglers or rally points for pirates. One in particular, a former research lab in the southern hemisphere, nestled inside a crater against a large mountain, quietly opened up in 2948. The locals would come to call it Jumptown.